The man, the rock star.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Esther Yang, and I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. And this is the best thing ever. And thank you for being here 3 days before the book is officially out. So I'm really grateful. And I want to thank Gary. Where are you, Gary? Gary and Mike for their law firm. Their gorgeous law firm. If you have not been outside, I highly recommend it. Just don't jump. Outside's beautiful St. Patrick, and the man of the hour, and the man of the year, the man of the life, whatever it is. But Andrew Yang, who has no needs introductions. So I want you guys, before you do anything, please consider buying more than one book. All right. Do support. This book actually comes from Strand, so do support local bookstore. I need Andrew to be New York Times bestseller, not just 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and maybe the whole year. So anyway, there it is, Mr. Forward.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Esther. Let's give it up to Esther Yang for bringing us all here together today. What a powerhouse, such a force for good. I got to know Esther over the last number of months trying to make positive things happen in New York. And Esther, you're one of the rare breed in politics who's driven by just a desire to do good and help people, and we love you for it. Thank you so much, Esther. Really, no relation, not like we're cousins. No obligation, or any of this. It's a thrill to be here. This is the first event I've had for my book. As Esther said, this book does not come out until Tuesday. And I'm incredibly proud, not just of the book, but of what it hopefully will mean for our entire country. Now, I ran for president. That's when most of you met me. And after I came off the trail in March of 2020, I wanted to try and get my thoughts down on paper, because over the previous 2 years running for president, I had done approximately zero reflection. If you can imagine what the process of running for president was like, I was just going from appearance to interview to event, and it was everything I could handle, just trying to keep straight like what town in Iowa I was in, so I didn't go home and be like, hey, Dubuque, it's great to see you, and then it turns out I was in another place. So that's what my life was like over that period of time, and I was running 100 miles an hour. So many people got behind that campaign. We outcompeted half a dozen brand name politicians on the way to 7 national debates, and it seems like there are a lot of Asian Americans here today. But I wanted to share that when I started out my presidential campaign, people would say, hey, are you serious? Like, what do you think you're going to accomplish? And we all know my main goal was to mainstream universal basic income and the fact that our economy was being transformed by technology and other forces. But I will confess to you all that one of my other motivations was to get an Asian American on the presidential debate stage. Because I knew what that would have meant to me. As someone who grew up in this country, the child of immigrants, when you turned on the TV, there were not many Asian Americans on TV at all, much less on a major debate stage. And when I got off that stage in Miami and I saw the picture of the debate stage, my first reaction was, who's the Asian guy next to Joe Biden? And then it took me a second to be like, wait, that's me. So that was a really exciting moment. And we achieved that over and over again because so many people got behind the campaign. But I knew that I hadn't really processed what had happened over the previous number of months. So that's what this book started out as. This book was about trying to figure out what I'd been through, what I'd learned. And during the course of writing the book, I unpacked both my own experiences, but I also read the works of a lot of other people who'd been staring at our political system and our media and our data and social media, and how the incentives today are unfortunately turning us against each other more and more. How we're getting more and more polarized as a country. And if you look at it, we have a layer cake of incentives that are driving us toward the extremes. The first one is that that we have political incentives that do reward extreme points of view that manifest differently in each party. But if you look at the mechanics, what is the national approval rate for the U.S. Congress right now?
16? Higher than it should be.
It's 28%, which is actually a little bit higher than it's been. It went from like 21 to 28 over the last number of, yeah, maybe. What is the re-election rate for individual members of the U.S. Congress? 92%. So think about that mismatch for a second. You have an entity that is disappointing or even infuriating 3 out of 4 Americans, but if you're in there, the odds of you are keeping your job astronomically high. Why is that? It's in large part because that individual legislator does not have to convince 51% of their district or their voters that they deserve to keep their job. They just need to convince the 10 to 20% of the most extreme partisans in their party to keep them around. So their incentives are not around delivering and compromising. It's around essentially placating the most extreme partisans in their district. And this is having catastrophic effect on the Republican side right now, I'm going to suggest, because if you look at the Republican Party and think, why is it that no one seems to be willing to say a bad word about Trump? It's because they have to go through this 20% partisan primary and they know they're going to lose. On the Democratic side, the distortions are different. I think on the Democratic side, the major problem is that there are certain special interests that have gotten their tendrils into the Democratic primary and said, hey, if we can get in there, then we can keep things from changing. We can do things that are going to serve our interests but may not be in all voters' interests. So that's just the system as it's designed. You have these political incentives that are going to end up rewarding the extremes. You have to think about a system that if you were reasonable and you got into it, it would make you less reasonable over time. Like, that's really the system we have politically. The media landscape compounds this because at this point the media is separating us into ideological camps, and they figured out that their ratings go up and their ad revenue goes up if they give us what they want or give us what they think we want. There was a producer at a major cable network who actually said, we're not news, we're comfort. They don't even pretend towards objectivity anymore. And that makes sense for their businesses, but it's not good for the country in terms of us trying to find some middle ground. And then you have social media pouring fuel on this fire and rewarding negativity and extremism in various ways. So in this system, as it's designed, is there any reason for us to expect it to get better? Is there every reason for us to expect it to get worse? Which is what we're all feeling. And this is what I unpacked during my own journey, where I realized, and I know now, as you all would imagine, dozens of very, very senior public officials, senators, members of Congress, appointees, some of them I consider friends. I like them. But even they would acknowledge that their incentives are not driving them towards the public benefit and is distorting their behavior in different ways. I actually, at this point, now feel kind of like sympathetic towards or bad for a lot of the people that are in this system. But when you're in the system, your incentives become the system's incentives. And that's where we are as a country right now. So the question is, what the heck can we do, right? What the heck can we do? At this point, you have billions of dollars in incentives driving us towards the sides and billions of dollars trying to keep things this way, even though right now political stress is at all-time highs in the United States. It's literally at Civil War levels. You're seeing political violence manifest in different ways. The unthinkable is now very possible in the United States. There are people who despair that we may be facing a genuine civil war or constitutional crisis over the next several years, and I think that fear is well-founded, genuinely. This also is fueling the despair and negativity we all feel and we all sense. You're not going to believe it, but I've actually found a solution for this matrix of problems that I presented, like a real life solution that we can deliver on and execute on. And as with most things in life, it is not my idea. I am, it's like I'd be the first to say, universal basic income, not my idea. Thomas Paine, Martin Luther King, like all these thinkers were for it. But interestingly enough, this real life answer to the problems I've laid out comes from Alaska. How many of you have been up on the news where you know about Senator Lisa Murkowski and what's been going on with her of late? Verena knows. So someone go ahead and shout out why Lisa Murkowski is in the news right now. Go ahead, Verena. That's fine. So she's in the news because she is the only Republican senator who voted to impeach Donald Trump, who is up for re-election next year. Very newsworthy. Her approval rating among Alaskan Republicans is now 6%. It genuinely is political suicide to go against Donald Trump when you have a Republican primary. But last year, Alaska actually changed its system where there is not a party primary anymore in Alaska. It goes straight to an open primary that's available to everyone. So Senator Murkowski actually can take her case to the 51% of Alaskan voters who think that she's a fine public servant and entitled to her own independent judgment, and has a genuine chance at winning. Do you all think that maybe that change in the system might even have affected her decision? Of course it did, because like any rational actor, you respond to incentives. What happened was her incentives actually changed, where she does not have to go through a party primary. She can just make her case to the genuine public, and then her behavior changes. The way that Alaska got this was not through any act of Congress. It was through a ballot initiative of a bunch of people in Alaska said, you know what, I think this would be better for us, for our representatives. It would actually unlock them from the polarizing incentives that they're subject to. The same measure is available in